If everyone would like to take their seats, we're going to begin the operating budget for this evening. Thank you. I'm going to call the operating budget meeting to order, and we have attending this meeting numerous guests, so thank you so much. And let me see, I'm going for budget. Freeman will be coming later, who chairs this committee. I am co-chair. Councilman Milkovich is here, Councilman Hoke is here, and I imagine Councilwoman Amobian will be coming. So having said that, okay, Jeff has it. Okay, and having said that, we will go ahead and get started with, should I turn it over to you, Steve? Are you ready?
Okay, well, thank you, Madam Chair. So we do have, we have the judges, we have the clerk of courts tonight, we have Department of Neighborhoods, and we have the Department of Public Service. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Judge Michaels and Ms. Jackson.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and distinguished council members. We're here to review our budget, and we've provided you with some documentation as to what we're actually doing at Akron Municipal Court. We are pretty much holding steady as she goes, and we are open to any questions you might have.
Okay, the budget numbers are obviously, yes. They are labeled 6-1 through 6-6.
Thank you, Mr. Fricker. Are there any questions from the committee members? We're practicing our iPad skills right now, as you can tell. Notice how we keep going like this. Okay,
so while you're looking, if I can just share some of how we've outlined the goals this year. As Judge Michael indicated, and I also would like to introduce Judge Ron Cable, who's here with us today. But our budget is holding steady. We have the same number of full-time staff, 55. The proposal is tied to our 4 goals under our strategic plan, our mission, which is promoting public trust and confidence, protecting rights and liberties, upholding and interpreting the law consistently and timely, and providing for peaceful and fair, efficient resolution of disputes. So then you will see how each of our accomplishments, as well as our goals for 2018, align with those bullet points of our mission.
Councilman Fusco.
Is the goals somewhere on here or hard copy?
And that was on Monday. You emailed it. You emailed us everything on Monday. So I'm having a hard time finding it also.
I have some extra copies.
I like to act like I'm really good at this, but has anybody found it and you're surpassing me? No, so I'm not the only one, just so, yeah.
I'd also like to introduce at this time Judge John Oldham, who has joined us, and Judge Nicole Walker.
Okay. Would you stand so in case we don't know you, although we do. Hi, welcome.
Obviously, Nicole and John.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for that clarification. And you know what, did we get I know who you are, but I don't know if you were introduced. I know Ron?
Yeah, I was introduced.
Okay, all right, good enough.
And the Montrella Jackson. Thank you.
Thank you. What do you see as some of the larger obstacles that you'll be looking at this year?
Well, unless the judge would like to add, some of the things we've highlighted, of course, is we're still working on the location of our building, as well as looking at our technology, which is something we can enhance now while we're on the existing site. And then also we're looking at training in terms of our ongoing resources for staff, to, along with promoting the public trust and confidence, making sure we have a training needs assessment and plan for staff in terms of what the skill set would be to provide services for the public. And then also, we're looking at, as well as every court in the country, is our policies in line with bail reform and pretrial services to reduce the number of incarcerations, but also look at the cost associated with the bail reform.
Thank you. Is there anyone else on the committee or any other council members that have questions? Okay. Anyone? No? Okay. It looks to me like you've done a great job of informing us prior to you even setting foot here, so we thank you for that.
Thank you. We also brought some copies of our brochures for our specialized dockets, which we'd like you to have, and then we have a copy of our org chart, so if you need to contact the judges or any of our staff, that information's available.
Perfect. I'll take that from you, make sure they go in all the mailboxes.
Thank you.
Akron Municipal Court, we're very blessed in our area to have judges who want to engage in the community in a way that instead of sending people to jail, we are putting them through programming in order to prevent them from coming back into the system. That's at least the goal. So we're very fortunate here to be able to provide, with all the community providers, that type of treatment.
Judge John Oldham and I had the opportunity last week to be part of a conference that looked at the resources that we have here in the county and how we are connecting them to give the best service to our clients that make a mistake and where we have some shortfalls that we need to shore up. And most of it is better communication. Almost always it's our communication. But it was good to have all of the providers that we, almost all, in the mental health along with the addiction field, were there to tell us some of the hurdles that they encounter as we try to get people back on the right track. So thank you for all your efforts at the court. I know that we have a lot to be proud of with the initiatives and the grants and the follow-through that we have going on in our court system. So thank you for your dedication, all of you. Councilman Fusco.
Thank you. I know last year there were some comments referenced that the technological piece, if you will, and how is that going moving forward in terms of technology?
Well, the court has taken some initiative, and what we're doing from the judge's side is we're investigating different types of programs that other courts in the state are using in order for us to update how we see information. And that's technology we'll be able to take with us. That's something that we're looking into right now. In fact, we have a provider coming Wednesday?
Yes, we have
for training.
2 scheduled, Courtview and Pioneer are the 2 we're bringing back to review their proposals.
So it's like a case management type?
Yes.
So if I could just interject, on page 6-4, that's the computer system fund for the courts. Each, the clerk's office and the judges both have a computer fund, and we do have dollars for a case management system budgeted under that particular budget there.
I'm sorry, I got to get to 6.4.
That's correct. This year we budgeted, set aside amount from our AMSIS fund for that.
6.4. How's it funded? Funding for it?
For each
Fees?
case that's filed, there is 50, I don't know, actually Jim would probably, is it $1?
It's $4 for mine, $3 for you, through the court computer fund. It's the court costs effective, authorized by the court.
So it's every case that's filed. There's $7 set aside for this purpose.
Found it. Okay, cool. So it's, I see it, I got there, 6.4, I think, is where it's located here, the Amesis Fund?
That's
Is
right.
that correct? Is that
Correct,
right?
yes.
And I see there's a balance there of 347? Or is that the,
Right,
that's a budgeted
that's
amount?
the 300 of that is for the case management system.
Right, right. 347. And what's the annual income from the fees that's collected?
I believe we accrue about approximately 100,000 a year. At least that's what we brought in last year.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councilman Fusco. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I think we'll move on to our next one. And thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Oh, are we trading seats?
So did I. That's why you see me, that's why you see me going like this. It isn't coming up under your name.
I brought extra copies.
Thank you. Ah, yeah, I've got that. Yeah, I'm on the same one you were just on. It's okay. Oh, yeah. And without page numbers, Margot. Yeah, so. Yeah, but I think what we're missing are the page numbers, but I will tell you, I did find it, okay? And if I can help anybody else, I'll be happy to. It's right there. Did you get it? Well, it's page 35 of 107 is what mine says. Mhm. And that's for, that's for Clerk of Courts, Jim Laria. So, and I think if we go to the other one, it's the budget. I think this is the goals, and then the other one is the budget. No. Please go right ahead. I apologize.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. I'm Jim Laria, Akron Clerk of Courts, and glad to be back again for another term. I have with me my Chief Deputy, Scott Gale. Our office had a very good year last year. We were able to get a lot of things implemented, and even with the nature of a campaign and stuff going on, we were able to continue to move the office forward and continue to serve the people well in the clerk's office. Some of the notable accomplishments we did last year, which really it started to change the face of our office a little bit, was the biggest thing was we started e-filing on traffic tickets with the Ohio State Patrol. That has been a very successful program. It's as soon as the officers download the ticket back to their base, they once a day download it to our office, and it automatically populates our fields, creates a case number, and we no longer have to worry about trying to manually read somebody's writing, and eliminates all the errors from just a basic reading function. And it's been smooth. We haven't had any problems with it, and it saves a ton of time on my part as far as having to dedicate basically a full-time clerk does nothing but data entry. We've pretty much eliminated, I'd say, maybe 40% of that time. We still have to do Akron, which is our biggest writer, and then the other districts. But I'm also working now with some of the other police departments, and we're very close to adding Bath as a secondary department. They'll be on sometime this year. We're already in the testing phase with them. I've talked to Farallon. They're very interested, and they're starting to move on it. And I've obviously talked to Akron, but they're in the midst of a whole reorganization of their computer automation system. And it's part of it, but it's a very small part, and I'm not sure where priority it is right now with the police department. And part of that is, I know they've written a grant because there is a cost associated with it to get the software enhancements. The State Patrol will provide their software development to the police departments. But there's a cost of then trying to have the cost to be able to put the printers and to be able to print out the stuff in the cruisers. And Akron being a big department, it's a major cost to try to, fit the proper computer equipment that they need in the cars to print out the tickets and to be able to give it basically automated services right in the car. So the State Patrol, like I said, they're our second major department as far as writing tickets, and they probably make up, I'd say, about 40% of our tickets. Probably Akron makes up another 45%, and the other 5% are from the outside districts. But the smaller districts, they don't have as many cars, and it's probably more affordable for them, and so they're moving first. So I hope to have Bath, possibly Farallon by the end of the year on board. And I've talked a little bit to Springfield. They've shown some interest. And so I see this hopefully working across all of the law enforcement departments so we can become totally automated, because it's pretty slick to be able to have the officer write his ticket out in the car, send it in, and we get it right downloaded to our system and not have to do other than to check to make sure everything's correct, print out the ticket, and it's all finished and done. So it's been a real enhancement for our court. It's been a real labor saving, and some of the other things that we've finished along those lines as far as automation is we're now have started to do digital imaging as far as creating our complaints, and as a case finishes now, we've gone to a sheet on the sentencing order, and that is now immediately being scanned upon being filed. So that's also now available online. So we've enhanced the criminal traffic side immensely. Civilly, we've always had imaging available online for the last, I'm thinking about 12 years now. So those records are all online from a digital standpoint, and we're now moving very close on the criminal and traffic. The other side note to that is I also had a major imaging program on old records. We outsourced that. They did, in criminal cases, they did it from, it'll be from 98 through 2010. Those here within the next month or so will be available online also to check the criminal sentencing orders, the rights, the basic stuff I have to keep for 50 years, so that we're reducing again that paper flow and all those records that I have to keep archived. So things are moving well from an automation standpoint. Again, there's a couple things we need to approve. I put it in the goals for this year. The biggest hang-up right now is with the BCI convictions. We're still doing that manually, And the biggest hang-up I have with that is in order to transfer those records down, I have to capture what they call a IT number, which is produced by the booking in the sheriff's department. So I have to be able to incorporate those, that booking number into our system so that when our case is finished, then I can electronically send those BCI convictions down to the state. But we're close. We're working on that. It's been a sheriff's office has gone through some things here in the last year too of upgrading their software, and it wasn't, just wasn't in the mix because it's not a big priority on their part. It kind of is for mine, but we'll work through that and eventually make that a reality too. You can read the other. You've got copies of my goals and objectives. I won't go through them all. From a financial standpoint, as the judge said earlier, we're kind of treading water. Pretty standard. We were up in a couple, down in a couple as far as filings. We were up slightly in traffic and criminal, or no, traffic and civil, and we were down in criminal and parking tickets. So that's kind of it in a nutshell as far as filings, but overall our money is pretty similar. We're over the 10 million gross receipts again, and continue to move things along. The one thing that I do want to say, and I've said it here for probably going back at least, I'd say a half dozen years, maybe longer, is to possibly the administration and the council to look at possibly looking at parking fines as far as a possible increase. We've had no basic increase in parking fines since 1992 other than handicap parking. And there was one other addendum somewhere, I think about a year ago. Council passed an increase on a certain type of violation pertaining to cars parked in a yard. You up that cost. But the basic cost of our parking violations, meters are $10 and everything else is $15. And that hasn't changed since 1992. So I do think that it's time to look at it from an inflationary standpoint. I know the city's still looking very tight as far as how things are rolling. And I do think it's warranted. It's been a long time that's been addressed. And you're really only finding those that are in violation. It's not an increase to anybody unless you fail to pay the meter or park illegally. So it's not an automatic, quote, tax increase or anything along those lines. It's simply if you violate the law, you've got a reasonable penalty. And I think our penalties have become very low when you look at other communities and what they're charging. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. That's kind of my comments for...
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I will tell you, administration has already mentioned in our other hearing that we would be looking at some of the fees to take a look at our structure and everything to address that. So thank you for also adding your 2 cents into that. And now I will open it up to anyone on the committee first, if anyone on the committee has a question. Councilman Hoke.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Jim.
How are you?
Okay, thanks. I was wondering, you were talking about the parking violations and meters, parking, and that. What percentage of those fines are paid as opposed to how many are, given out?
Actually, we do very well in the collection of our parking tickets. Over the course of time, because we never have dismissed any out, and it actually takes 3 regular parking tickets before I'm able to put a hold on with the state of Ohio as far as holding license renewal and plate renewal. So it takes 3, so some of these tickets can sit a while, but overall, we collect our parking tickets at about an 85% rate over the life of those tickets.
Okay. Do you have any other suggestions for, as far as an increase would go, so that, like what we have in other cities and where they're at, what would comparable that...
Well, I've done the bigger urban centers like, Columbus, Cleveland, and those, yes. Most of them are from 35 to 50, and I think a couple are even higher than that. If you look at our local communities, they're pretty close to, but they don't write the tickets that we do. I mean, we write a volume tickets anywhere from 20 to 30,000 in that range. Usually 20 is a low, average has been about 25,000. So most of the other communities, small, like I'm talking Falls and Barberton, they're barely lucky to do 500 to 1,000 parking tickets. They don't have a real parking enforcement cost, so it's not a big issue to them. But for the urban areas, that has a lot of business and traffic flow, you look at the cost of what they're charging, we're nowhere in the ballpark.
Yeah, and keeping it at that level right now, that is more than likely costing us money in order to, utilize it, or, to get those tickets out there and
Well, even if you increased each one $5, say you went from 10 to 15, 15 to 20, with that cost, that would probably bring in an extra, what did I say, the 10, 20,000, a little over $100,000, probably, $150,000 probably over the course of collecting them all. So it's not and it's not a huge sizable cost, and we're still would be one of the cheapest areas anywhere, I would say, in the state at 15 and 20. So that's just food for thought, but I do think
But it would
is
help
something
cover
that
our
needs to be
costs.
addressed. It's long overdue. We haven't even kept up with inflation.
yeah. Okay.
Would you mind,
Thank you.
finished?
No, yeah, I'm
Okay.
fine. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Mr. Clerk, would you tell everyone here how you explained it to me? That was a discussion we had right when you came in of who writes the ticket. That's
Well, the ticket's done is outsourced with the city that handles the actual ticket writing. We handle the collection of those. But again, it's only those that have violated either the meter, or they're parking illegally, or they're in a handicapped parking spot. I mean, and so technically it's a civil violation. So, you're not going to arrest anybody. The worst that can happen to them over time, if they get 3 holds, is they might have to be delayed to get their driver's license renewed or their plates renewed, that I can put a hold on those if they're in violation after 3. Now, handicap parking tickets, that's a different issue. If they fail to pay on one, I can immediately put a hold on there, because anything over $100, the state will take it with 1 ticket. But it's a civil violation. But like I said, we collect about 85% of the tickets written, and it's a very good collection rate, and that's one of our potential good revenues. I mean, criminal is mostly more about programs and paying in traffic. If it's more of a waivable thing, those are the minor misdemeanors. Those are pretty much in and out, and then civil is pay as you go. So from a cost collection standpoint, the biggest gap would be in the criminal fine area and the laws have changed recently over the years that you're no longer allowed to do warrants and things for money and stuff, and so basically those now go straight out to collection if they fail to pay, and then it becomes their problem on their credit rating. But there's not really, you don't have the same kind of hammer if you had a potential warrant out where they could be arrested for failing to pay fines and costs. That isn't something we're doing anymore on fine money. So that's a process too that we're chasing those particular things quite regularly now too.
Thank you for the clarification. Anyone else have a question, comment? Councilman Fusco?
Thank you. In terms of, tell us about under your 2017 accomplishments, updated court website.
Well, if you look at our search side of it, it's been completely updated. It's a whole new look. You now scroll everything rather than having to come in and out. It's very much easier to read. Not that it was hard before, but before, if you wanted to check different levels, you had to look at one thing, pop back out. Let's say you wanted to check fines. You had to go into the fine section. If you wanted to check the docket, you had to go into the docket section. Now, once you get into the case flow and you look at it, you just have your headings and it's a straight scroll. You go right on down, you can view the whole record and not have to go back and forth.
So that was, was that the expenditure that this council passed in October 23rd of last year? Was that
No.
that, or
this
is it for?
This was different. This has been in the works for me for a while.
Okay.
And we were able to finish that up and then convert it over.
Good,
So
good.
before I unveiled, I was kind of waiting for the other side. The static side is what we're looking at now, to dress up the static information and to make that more user-friendly.
Right, yeah.
But
Update
the
that.
record search itself, we've just finished that upgrade and is now out on the website. And it's
So
a lot
that,
more
so that
streamlined.
expenditure, I can't remember what we passed, $30,000, that's
Right.
yet to be seen in terms of the update for the website.
Correct.
Cool.
That's
good.
where you open the page and you see, and you go through the different levels.
Right.
That's what that is. The
Right.
search records, if you get in, hit the search button, you look a case up now, and you look at the actual case, you'll go through and it'll be one continuous stroll of information. You don't have to go back and forth.
Also noticed in terms of your website that under construction is e-filing. You've mentioned the piece with the State Highway Patrol, which sounds great. But in terms of e-filing for, say, the civil or the criminal, so on and so forth, where's that at?
Well, that is going to be a kind of a court move as a whole. Right now, within 24 hours of a civil case being filed, I have it online, real time. So the digital file, from a digital format review, you can view any of the filings online within 24 hours. So that isn't necessarily a priority right now, and I'll tell you why. Because most of the courts that have started this, as long as you're still working from a paper file, and the judges like to review the paper file, if I got to pay to print out all those proceedings, if you'd come into my office and see in a given day, I get 2 full baskets of pleadings every day that come through. If I have to start the day every day printing all those out, that's a cost the taxpayers have to absorb, and until the court as a whole, and when I say the court, I'm talking about the judges, they want to go strictly on a digital format. I mean, our system right now can go digital probably within a month or two, technically. But if you got to print out the paper, what's the point? Why should the taxpayers have to pay for that paper? So
Yeah, no, it's e-filing.
I've got it in a situation where they can review that in 24 hours and have the same thing that would happen if you file online. The attorneys love it. I have no complaints about, quote, needing to go to an e-filing format because of we turn that around within 24 hours. So they're more than happy. They can check service. They can check answers. They get it. They know if something was filed today, they'll see it tomorrow. Good. Now, on the criminal and traffic cases, you know, we create those. That's a process that, you know, as we file it, you know, we're moving in that direction, as you can see, with the complaint process, with the sentencing orders, that's being imaged as they're completed, and the tickets are now starting to be e-filed. So, you know, technically, we're there. It's just a matter of semantics as far as what you want to call digital.
Good, good. In terms of the case management piece that's being shared, it sounds like the judges is kind of driving that in terms of case management. And
their end is falling behind. I'll be the first to say, from a user part on there where they want to be able to check stuff, that piece has fallen somewhat behind as far as an automation piece for them to be able to see things on the bench and view those kind of things. So that piece needs to be addressed. And you know, we're looking at that, and it'll be moved as a group. Our current operating system, it's been a workhorse. I mean, it's been in place for over 30 years now. We've never had a problem with it. I've never lost any money. It's a very good piece. Somebody has to keep the records, track the dollars, find out if something doesn't balance, where it happened, and we've never had a problem being able to identify problems with our current system. And when you look at our system, and we've got over now 30 years in this system, and never a problem. We've got every record from day one available to the public. It's been a tremendous, tremendous automation system. And we've kept pace from the public demands as far as an interactive website. Our website is real time. As a case is filed, it's put out on the web. There's no delay. Like I said, if you want to say one part of the day would be the 24-hour delay on the civil filings. But for the most part, as far as seeing a case filed, seeing the parties, it's all real time. Seeing a sentencing order, when a judge sentences a case, posts a bond, as soon as that goes into the system, it goes live to the web. So there is no delay from an automation standpoint for public awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're so welcome, Councilman Swirsky.
I'm just curious about how many people use your website, or do you track that? And I mean, use is kind of a vague term, but because there's different kinds of visits and use. Do you have any numbers on that, or?
We used to have a counter on it, but I don't know if we really keep that too much anymore. A ton of people use it. The web payments itself, people that can pay online, want to pay their traffic fines, the web payments have, over the last couple of years, gone through the roof. I mean, we're literally probably taking close to 50,000 in a month now over the web. So, and I haven't even done any real advertising. They know it's there, it's working. The attorneys that use the system from landlords to attorneys who want to check backgrounds of people. They know it's real time, they can check it and know exactly up to date what's going on. So the users of the court, they love it.
Yeah, 50,000 a month is quite
It's really
large number. Yeah.
taken off.
Yeah, convenience gets
Right.
compliance. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyone else have a comment? Yes, Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Hi, Mr. Clerk. On the indigent driver alcohol treatments, what is this?
That is state money that comes back in via reinstatement fees. All I do is collect the money, it goes into fund, and the judges use that for sentencing alternatives for different things, whether it's, interlock programs. I'm not, treatment.
It's for treatment services. It's on indigent cases. It has to be by order of the judge if the defendant is indigent and they need treatment services. It's usually depleted each year, but the clerk's office presents the money to the state and it comes back to us in that fund.
So I was just wondering, because there's no expenditures in 2017, there's 25,000 budgeted, but now in 2018, there's 150,000.
Well, it builds if we don't use it. It depends on the program, what the judges are using it for, but it's
Does it roll
basically
over,
state
Mr. Clerk?
reimbursement
Mr.
money.
Clerk,
It's what comes back.
does it roll over? So it's a
Yes.
rollover, so, okay.
Yes, we don't lose it if it's not used.
Very good. So on 7-03, on your expenditures, under the AMCIS funds, so last year we had budgets 231, you spent 81,000. This year is 232,000. Is there something significant?
Okay, the AMSIS fund, that's our computer fund. The judges and myself each collect so much on our costs, bills in the fund, and then we purchase what we need as far as automation, computer equipment. It's strictly funds to be used for automation for the court. It's basically how we've been able to continue to update our computer system. It's kept us modern. It's allowed us to update our overall computer operation over the years as far as overhauls and staying current and increasing the hardware and the computer, the actual personal computers and anything that goes along with automation.
So perhaps I missed something, because this is almost 3 times more. Are we expecting to do
Well,
something?
we're looking at possibly upgrading our software. And a lot of these systems can be anywhere from $250,000 to $1 million when you're talking about a software upgrade to the system itself. And usually along with that, we may have to do a hardware upgrade, which would be the actual processing of the
So you're
hardware.
anticipating a hardware and a
Well,
software
we're
upgrade?
anticipating a software upgrade this year. Like I said, we haven't really had one in I'd say 30 years as far as other than some minor enhancements in program, like we've added, judges I know have added, like over the years, a probation element program to help track their stuff. And so it's for those kind of things. We're looking at a major software upgrade, and actually we're due for possibly even a hardware upgrade. Usually we averaged about 7.5 years with our hardware upgrades. What I'm talking about there is the size of the hardware, the computer, the processing, the total number of bits, the size, the scope of the information, the processing speeds. So those things we've averaged about 7 years on our hardware upgrades, and we're right at about that point now.
So you said a whole bunch, and I don't want to get it confused. So you have in your objectives for this year to do an upgrade. That's the
right.
reason we
Both
have
of us do. Because part of that upgrade, we would get away more from the green screens, more to personal computers and those kind of things too. But it's all handled through that particular fund. It's not a general fund expenditure. It's something the court collects, and then we spend it as the court says we need, that my side needs and the judge's side needs. We usually work together on those things and split the cost on the mutual upgrades.
Anyone else? Seeing and hearing none, I think you've answered our questions well. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Okay, so next up, we have the Department of Neighborhoods.
I need to talk about the annual reports. Mr. Larry's last annual report on the website is 2014.
Did you just look it up? Did you just find it?
No, I've been looking, I look at it often, but the last updated annual report is 2014.
Real time.
That's okay. Yeah, yeah. Probably should have.
Good afternoon. I would like to introduce the Department of Neighborhood Assistance team.
Could they stand, please?
We have Greg Collell from Nuisance Compliance,
Well, I meant when your name
Doug
was
Taylor
called.
from
Wait,
Housing
Thomas
Community
gets that.
Services.
Thomas is the neighborhood assistant.
David
Yeah.
Dwayne Greger from Housing, Cheryl Manslanka, 311, Brittany Schmokel, Recreation, and Thomas Tatum, Housing and Community Services.
Thank you so much.
Okay, under the Department of Neighborhood Assistance Administration, we had what I felt was a very, very good year, and we did provide written documents as far as the 2017 goals and objectives, but everything on 2018 is based pretty much on the Department of Neighborhood Assistance Strategy Map. The administrative part of the Department of Neighborhood Assistance is very small, 2 people, mostly employee salaries. But in 2018, and we're getting close to be taking on the vacant building register, the VBR. You guys have heard me talk about that for quite some time, so we will be administrating that. We had over 40 office hours in 2017 at the different community centers, and we'll have at least that many office hours in 2018. We're working with United Way. We're going to be building a Kaboom Park at Prentice Park this coming June. We're also, again, working with First Serve, Serve First, which is the First Congregational Church out of Hudson, Ohio, where they brought 700 volunteers to the Summit Lake community this past September. We're already making plans for this coming September, and we're going to have resources not only in the Summit Lake area, but a good percentage of those resources in the North Hill community.
Yeah, I think we're just going to kind of move through the different divisions of the Department of Neighborhood. So administration, nuisance, I believe, would be next.
Okay.
And in case anyone wants to know, it's 801. Now that we're getting her scrolling down here.
Okay, under nuisance compliance, we're going to be implementing the recommendations of last year's grass cutting Kaizen. I was prepared for your question that you asked the clerk of courts, what is an obstacle that is before you? And that's going to be warm, wet April weather, because that grass is going to start growing. So thank you for not asking me that question. But,
I guess I won't.
Well, what's the answer?
that's going to be an obstacle, warm, wet April weather come May. We're going to work with, hopefully, the Planning Development Services Department to come up with a creative program for selling vacant city properties. The more vacant city properties that we can get in private hands, or less vacant properties that we have to mow as a department. And of course, we brought legislation in here a couple weeks ago on outsourcing grass cutting of the city vacant lots with the nonprofits. As far as the 311 call center, we're encouraging residents to utilize the 311 online service to reduce hold wait times. I believe since the 311 online service was implemented, we have about 1,700 people that have utilized that. There's been 1,700 requests for services. So the more people that will use the 311 online service, it helps people calling into the 311 call center, and it will reduce our call waiting. Housing Division, they had enforcement on over 2,100 known unregistered landlords to increase the number of registered owners in the rental registration program. This will increase revenue and help clean up neighborhoods. And we have a great collaboration with the Summit County Land Bank for demolition. In 2018, the Summit County Land Bank will be demolishing 280 houses for our Housing Division, and the demolition program is now part of the Housing Division. Under the Recreation Bureau, we'll be implementing a Recreation Bureau strategic plan to create community surveys and collect surveys, data analysis to create a new mission, vision, values of the department. And again, that is in our strategy map. Promote Rec Desk and encourage online registration for any of our activities, any of our exercise, fitness classes, leagues, and things like that. That, again, is included in our strategy map. And to, again, for the second year, promote safety around water program, again, at our 2 swimming pools. That is in our strategy map. The Housing and Community Services, and if you don't recall, I think I reminded everybody last year, January 1 of 2017, the Housing and Community Services Division and the demolition program from planning came into the Department of Neighborhood Assistance. So now we're in year 2. Under Housing and Community Services, they're going to continue assistance for emergency roof repairs to complete an additional 50-plus residential units, complete the 3rd year of a 3-year, $3.7 million lead hazard reduction demonstration grant. And one of the things that's also new in our strategy map in 2018 to generate revenues is offer lead testing to other public and government jurisdictions. So those are pretty much the highlights of the different divisions in the Department of Neighborhood Assistance. And like I said, the 2018 goals and objectives are all based on our 2018 strategy map. So if there are any questions?
Wow, I'm sure there are. Councilman Fusco, okay, thank you. And did you have a question, Councilwoman?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm looking at your Housing and Community Services section. Looks like you have, is it full-time, 9 employees? Is that what this is? I'm on page 77.
That's correct.
And you budgeted a similar amount as you're budgeting this year, but you use substantially less. Are you anticipating, why are you,
Okay,
you budgeted 558.17.
what's the page, 0808, okay.
0808. Yeah.
Okay, and that,
And the actual was 389,254. Well, we're, again, budgeting almost 200,000 more. What are we looking to do? And this is labor.
yeah, I believe we have, I know one thing we did there is that we brought on an employee that was formerly a contract employee. So We did add an employee. Now, these are employees that came over from the planning department. So my notes say that we had 8 that came over from the planning department, plus we added an additional employee that was formerly a contract employee.
And that person is going to cost you that much?
Well, I would imagine we had a vacancy throughout the course of last year, and that's why we didn't spend. If you look at, we budgeted $558,000, and we only spent $389,000, so I would imagine that we had some vacancies last year.
Of the 9, or you have above the 9?
No, part of the 9.
Oh. So 9 employees will cost you that much? Is that what we're looking at?
Yes.
Huh. I need to work for this department. What's in here? Tell me these positions. What are we talking about?
Pardon me?
Positions that are included in this labor rank.
Housing rehab specialist. What are some of the?
Manager, administrative assistant, housing rehab specialist, loan and grant specialist.
And there are multiple of those positions?
For a total of 9.
Total of 9.
4 housing rehab specialists, 2 financial specialists.
So what did you have last year?
We had 8.
8?
Yes, contract employee was able to hire in. The contract employee was able to hire in as a rehab specialist.
The question I have is, the actual expenditure at that level was $389,254, and you are anticipating 1 additional staff, and it's
We
5
also have a lead grant that takes up a lot of that.
under labor?
Yes, most definitely.
All right, so I'm being told that the lead grant offset some of the payroll costs last year. So some of the employees last year were charged off, had a portion of their time charged off to the lead grant, and therefore the labor expenditures in this particular budget were less.
So are we talking about part-time employees, the number, you're still talking about 9 people?
Yes, we have
Yes,
9
yeah.
people that work partially for the lead grant as well.
Well, maybe we'll talk offline. Maybe I'm not making myself clear, because it looks like a $200,000 projection over the actual of last year.
Right, well, last year, some of their time was charged off to the lead program instead of being charged to this budget. And that reduced the labor cost within the CD budget for housing and community services in 2017.
So that's why 217 went down.
Right,
Oh, I see.
yeah. And
Okay.
if you look at what we budgeted
Yes, I see.
for the 8 people, similar to what we're budgeting this year.
For 9 people.
Yeah, the 9.
Okay,
And we're budgeting as if all 9 will be paid from that budget.
I see. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Is there anyone else? This reminds me of when we were talking about the grant. I think it might have been the SAFER grant, that we had promised that we would use that grant, but after it was gone, we had to pick up the salaries then.
Right.
So, yeah.
Similar.
Councilwoman Sims?
Is it really similar? Because I thought the 9 coming over to your department, the additional came over to department, was freestanding, whether we had the lead grant or not. Is that not correct? They were coming whether you had the grant from the lead grant or not.
Correct. And we
Yes, it wasn't-
budgeted, and we
it wasn't-
budgeted for them to, we budgeted $558,000 in labor costs last year, but because we did have the lead grant, we were able to offset some of those charges.
Yeah, so it was
to-
unlike the SAFER grant, which after 5 years, you have to take the officers on as a part of
Right,
it.
I mean, I don't know if, for this particular one, if there was a local match that we had to satisfy for a period of time after the grant funds expired. I don't think that's the case here.
Okay.
You know, we've
it's a
returned
little
them
bit-
to full funding
Okay.
through CD, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Councilman Fusco?
Thanks. On the demo side, are we seeing in terms of the volume of complaints, reference housing, increase, decrease, where we're at on that? And budgetarily, looking on here, I can't tell.
We're treading in the right direction. We're starting to see a decrease.
Hoping,
yes.
yeah, good.
We've noticed the last 2 or 3 years, we're starting to see a decrease too on our securing of the vacant structures too. So we are heading in the right direction.
Okay. And the other question, like I said, I apologize, I haven't studied this as good as I probably could have, toggling back and forth, but the animal control piece, is that in here?
That is in there. That is part of nuisance compliance.
Right, that's going to be on page,
He has a hard time, that's not fair.
yeah, 0802 is where that is. So there's a contract,
What page? 0802.
you know, we have animal control wardens, and then we also have a contract with the Humane Society and a contract with the Summit County Animal Control Division.
What page?
8-2.
Thank you.
We have 2 full-time and 2 part-time animal control officers.
Thank you.
Is there someone?
Councilwoman Sims?
Okay, sure.
Mr. Ballard, are we anticipating additional loss to the 21st century grant? It's 812.
Yes, we budgeted, I believe, 400,000. What page is that on?
We're applying for new grants, but until they're awarded, we won't budget the new grants. Council passed legislation, I can't remember, January, February, to allow the city to apply for the grants. We have not been notified if we've received any of those. If we do, we'll have to come back to council and increase it. What we budgeted were the grants that are currently awarded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Amobian.
Yes, if we could go back to the neighborhood assistance nuisance compliance. You have 9 employees here, but you said you have, how does it break out?
They're over multiple budgets.
Oh, the same employees?
Yes, we have, Greg, how many in nuisance compliance? Okay, and then with animal control, customer service? Okay, so that's 8 in nuisance compliance, and that's an additional 5 with the 2 permanent animal control officers and the 3 that are in customer service. One's a coordinator and 2 are public project crew leaders.
Animal control. So if you have a pack of wild dogs, you only have 2 people that could go out and address that concern?
Well, we have 2 that work Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, and we
Okay.
have 2 part-timers that one works over the weekend and the other one works in the evenings. And they're pretty much dispatched. They get calls from the Akron Police Department on any dog
So what do you
issues.
do when you have that kind of issue? I guess we had a situation where there was a pack of wild dogs that attacked a woman in one of the wards. Do we need to have more people in that area, or what do you normally do when you get a call like that?
They'll go out, they'll investigate it, they'll fill out a report, they'll follow up, they'll try to find out who is responsible, who has ownership of them.
But if they are dogs that are just wild, just running around, do we have some kind of way of trying to entrap them, or I don't know what you do with that kind of situation?
They have cages on their truck. They're not equipped with any type of, I believe they used to carry
Tasers or guns or-
tranquilizer guns. I don't believe we do that anymore. We don't even carry tranquilizer guns.
I mean, it sounds so horrible that somebody could be attacked. I mean, seriously attacked, I understand. And I don't know, what is the average? Do we have more at some point in this area? More staff? at any time in the animal control section?
Have we, in history?
Yeah, I mean, in recent history. I
I'm
don't
going
want
to
to go
say
too
probably
far
just
back.
like any other department in the city of Akron,
We just cut
where
down to
we've,
bare bones.
you know, historically, we probably have 50% less employees today than we did 10, 15 years ago, and I would think that that's probably the case here also.
So have you gotten more calls in this area of late?
We get quite a few. We get
So
quite a
should
few.
we, as a council, be asking you to add more resources to this budget?
I feel with the resources that have been provided to us, they're adequate enough that we'll be able to address the issues out there.
Okay, I'll just have Mr. Kilby is the one who had the resident with the problem. Have them talk with you and see, because it just sounded horrible. Now, I don't know what we could do, but certainly if we had more people, I'm assuming, I really don't know, would that make a difference in trying to address the problem? And I don't know how bad the problem is in terms of, how many calls do you average? A month or 6 months or a year or whatever? Yeah.
3,800 a year
3,800
in
a year.
2017.
And that includes everything?
Anything animal related, barking dogs, dogs running at
Oh.
large.
What about dogs attacking folks? Do we separate that out?
We can get that for you.
Okay. And let's just see if it's a real concern that we need to be trying to address in a different way. It sounded pretty scary to me, but anyway, that was my question. Thank you.
Councilman Fusco.
I can help answer the question, Ms. Mobian, reference employees, the number of employees. Before the recession, back in the day, we had like 4 animal wardens and a supervisor, and now you hear where we're at. I think we've gotten more creative. I think the contract that we have with the, who's that again, with the county?
Yeah, so we have both the county and the Humane Society.
I think that's picked up some of that slack, but you know, if we look across the board since 2008, we've made significant cuts in a lot of departments. You know, like 50%, not rehiring. You know, through attrition, we've skimmed down. So, and given today's budget, it's going to be hard to find more.
I want to clarify, Councilwoman Amobian, did you want how many wild dog calls they have gotten, or how many just dogs off leashes that they would?
No,
that
I'm
you
talking
would like?
about folks.
We'll provide a breakdown.
Animals that are attacking folks.
We'll get you a
if
breakdown.
So animals that are attacked.
Yeah, whether dogs or whatever. See if there's a serious problem.
Yeah, just to validate what Councilman Fusco just said, so at the end of 2008, we had 2,214 full-time employees. Today, we have 1,825. That's a difference of 389 full-time people.
Oh, sure. That I've heard a number of times, so I know that we have a substantial reduction in employees. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Councilman Neal.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you. In that regard to number of employees, I'm just looking, I know Park and Rec has a lot of part-timers. Are they because I see full-time 22. Are they reflected anywhere in here?
Yes, they are.
They are on page 8-9.
8-9?
We generally have close to 100 seasonal employees at any given season. We have 2 seasons, winter and summer.
Okay. So, I mean, their salaries, I mean, their wages are included in here, but you said we have about 100. If we just would like to get a number, I remember asking this question a couple years back about city departments all throughout, because there was a question when we were talking about the fire department of people working in positions for a long time, serving maybe as a captain or a sergeant or a lieutenant, but they that's when we had the problems with the tests and whatnot. But I know we had that same concern in other departments. In the service department, I'm not sure as much in the Park and Rec department.
I mean, in terms of people underfilling positions,
Right. But
acting in a different capacity than what their
acting in
actual
different
job
capacity.
title is? Okay.
More so with Park and Rec, my concern is, I'd like for us to get the numbers on those folks that have been part-time and how long, and what's the rate that they transition to full-time. For those that want to transition to full-time, what that looks like. For this department. But overall, I do have that concern throughout the whole city. If we still have that in other departments, I know it's heavily in the service, it was in the service department, where people were acting in positions. We had focused on fire, but want to know if we still have that issue in other departments throughout the city.
As far as I can speak for recreation, a couple of years ago, we had several coordinators that were in an acting role. Today, we only have one part-timer in an acting role as a supervisor, one at one of our community centers. So all the full-time positions have been filled.
Okay, and this is going to be a question more so for Mr. Rice, because my concern is people who are, especially in Park and Rec, but are part-time and they've been maybe filling in it, or somebody's been acting in a position above their pay grade, I guess to say. Since we changed our benefit package, like somebody that comes on right now, they're under a different benefit compared to somebody that was working before. So, I mean, again, that's going to be something more for Mr. Rice, but my concern is, you know, the compensation and their benefit package.
Okay, let me just say, there is no change for full-time benefit packages. I think the difference might be whether or not they got retirement benefits. I think that's the only change. But if you're a full-time employee, you have the same benefits. We did not change that.
But do we have any, so we don't have any part-timers acting in positions that are full-time positions that would normally be full-time positions in Park and Rec?
We have one position that hasn't been filled.
Okay.
And a test was just recently taken in a week or so. We should have an eligibility list in that person. Hopefully somebody will be promoted into that position. Once that happens, we have nobody in the Recreation Bureau in an acting role.
Okay. But there's definitely no part-timer acting in a full-time position role right now. Is there?
No, there is not.
Okay. Like I said, the other questions would be for Mr. Rice. And then I noticed the summer lunch program. Did we still get money to fund that program, but our labor just isn't involved anymore? Does the school take that over or something? Or who took over providing the summer lunches?
I mean, we still do receive money, I think.
We are working with the Akron Public Schools, who have a food service for the nine and a half months out of the year. We're looking at the Akron Public Schools to be our food service provider for this summer lunch program.
Okay, so that would be on, the labor would be from their employees and not our, because I noticed the labor wasn't showing for us this year.
So we did have some part-time hours that were charged there last year, which were moved to the general fund. So it's the same number of hours, they're just not reflected on the summer lunch budget, they're in the general fund.
But I guess because we did not get sufficient funds to cover the labor.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Anyone else? Councilwoman Sims.
This is just a rarity, it probably makes it. On 8.3, the labor and cost increased, but the cost for benefits went down pretty good. Is there any reason? I hadn't seen that in the budget so far.
Yeah, I'm going to guess that's due to a retirement payout that occurred in 2017. Let me confirm that here. Nuisance, assessments nuisance.
That was a retirement payout.
Yes, so what happens is when an employee separates, their vacation and sick hours are paid out, and that payout occurs down in the fringe benefits category, so, yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilman Neal?
Thank you. And I'm probably having a hard time just finding it. Revenues that can come in through Park and Rec, what page would that be on?
Yeah, they wouldn't be, the revenues for a specific budget would not be reflected in any of the pages here. They would be coming in through the general fund or through whatever, for instance, the summer lunch program has its own fund. The assessments.
So we gotta go back to the general fund to find revenues from the different parks, or?
That is correct. Yeah.
And leasing fee, okay.
But I think what's before you is just the expense side, not the revenue side.
Okay, seeing and hearing no other questions, we will close this particular one with neighborhood assistance. No, I think we need to thank all of you guys about this. Thank you so much for all your hard work. Really. Rich, you and I did that.
We're the cheerleaders. They're really the, most people, need help. They're the ones who, with the public, right? They're making changes. Yeah, that's true.
What? Parks and Rec. I think I messed up. So easily.
Tell that nigga to stay here because I have to stay. I got some gas in it. Ouch.
It's kind of like that.
Oh.
That's from the old
balance it.
Yeah, definitely.
Because balance is a real clear indicator.
Yeah. That was a great. Just turn it on.
Do you want me to get his attention for you?
Yeah, it's coming from the old model.
Yeah.
Focus.
Mr. Chairman Freeman, this chair is yours. Okay, alrighty then. But at any point in time, you want to jump in here, it's all yours.
What's that? 3 minutes? Okay. I can do that.
I'm horrible at reading lips. I always tell people to say it right in my ear. So, okay, we will start now. If you would like to introduce yourselves and keep the names what we know. Don't switch those up.
Madam Chair, members of council, thank you very much for having us. I have Chris Luttle with me, and behind me, I have Brian Gresser, Jeff Branowski, Jim Hewitt, and Jim Hall. I kind of love this opportunity. It's a chance for me to talk about the dedicated individuals that sit behind me. I know that we kind of take them for granted, or to a certain extent, even I take them for granted for what they do, but it's probably wrong to do that. They do a wonderful job for us, and I want everybody to understand that. If we look at the water reclamation facility this year, if you've been down there lately, you notice that there are cranes and trucks and cement trucks and all kinds of workers moving around within that facility. We're going through about a $38 million renovation of the plant. When you renovate a kitchen, I mean, usually you go out to eat, a few days. When you what Brian has been tasked with is renovating that plant while still maintaining all of his EPA requirements. There's no way to shut the plant down, build the things that he needs to build. We have to continue to operate as we do every day. He's got a lot. When we finish this project, we will be able to process 220 million gallons a day. Before the project, we were processing 110 million gallons a day, so he's doubling the capacity of the plant. And he's doing that with a very dedicated staff. But somebody has to move those chess pieces, and Brian, through his leadership, is completing that project on budget, and we're going to complete it in August, which is ahead of schedule. So that is my story about Brian. Engineering, their single biggest task, obviously, is the Akron Waterways Renewed program. And good Lord willing, when the creek don't rise, we're going to finish the tunneling part of that, the biggest project that we're ever going to do. We're going to finish the tunneling hopefully this year. I think if
In November, if that project isn't, if the mining part of that isn't finished, you're going to see Jim Hewitt and Pat Zellman with miners' hats and pickaxes down there, because we are going to finish the tunnel this year. We're going to finish it. Now, that's an important project, but probably even more important is what engineering does on the side where we work with the EPA. They've put together a program that we have presented to the EPA that we are probably close. It's been through the middle management. It's heading to the upper management. We are going to get, I'm very confident we're going to get EPA concurrence on revisions to our consent decree, which we will then have to present to the federal court. But those revisions that we've worked on are going to save the ratepayers, we're estimating about $85 million, which, I mean, that's huge. I mean, it's just... But that's the kind of stuff they will... Mr. Freeman's here, let the record reflect.
Even when they applaud for themselves, we won't recognize it.
There you go. On the water supply side, we've had a pretty rough beginning to the year. In January, we had more water main breaks than we've ever had. We had about 110 of them. But when you compare that to previous years, that's almost double what we generally get in that length of time. But we fixed those breaks, and we did it with, for the most part, no disruption in service to our customers. Some people were out for a little while, but we fixed them as quick as we could, and we did a great job on that. I guess I'd like to explain kind of what that means, though. When we get a water main break, someone has to go out there and make an educated guess on where underground that leak is occurring. And then somebody has to dig up that pipe with a backhoe, and then somebody has to get down in there with a hand shovel, dig the pipe out the rest of the way, put a collar on it, and then stop the leak, and then obviously you backfill it. But that occurs no matter what time of the night or what the weather is. And we did 110 in January. Those guys, they're down in a wet hole, they're fixing those pipes, and I mean, what else can you say about them? They did it without question. They're a great bunch of guys. And another thing we did last year, which is, to me, is really good, we were able to help a neighboring community with their water issue. Mr. Banowski and his team made an emergency connection. It was from one of our hydrants to a trailer park in Springfield Township on Waterloo Road. That kept them in water until they could get their well fixed. But the thing that occurred that was really extraordinary, though, well, number one, that was on a Saturday evening, but that evening, the director of the Ohio EPA texted our mayor and told him how much he appreciated what Akron had done. Now, that's great in itself, but you got to understand that the relationships that we have with the directors of these EPA organizations are so important. I mean, the positive impact that has on our loans that we obtain from the EPA, on our sewer and water projects, and the ability for us to massage our program into something that helps the ratepayers with less cost, the kind of things that they did, they laid the foundation for that type of a relationship that, I mean, between what the mayor's done the past 2 years and what they've done on the water side, it has tremendously helped us on the sewer side. In Public Works, I know the weather hasn't really helped us either in the pothole situation. It's been a pretty rough beginning to the year. But in between snow and ice operations, we are out there every day filling potholes. We're filling them with cold mix right now, which means sometimes it may only last a couple days, which means we got to go back out and fill the same holes. But we're doing that. The good news is the asphalt plants are going to open up here relatively soon, and we're going to pave more mileage of roads this year than we've done in many, many, many years. And we're going to do that without any extra staff, and that's on Jim Hall's plate. We are coordinating with all the different divisions of the service department to make sure that we utilize every staff person we have to pull this giant program together. We're going to get it bid out here relatively soon. Now, what time did we start last year? June?
No, we probably didn't start paving until August.
Okay, we're going to start paving this year. Well, we have to because we have so many miles to pave, but we're going to start a whole lot earlier than that. And Mr. Hall is pulling that together as we speak, and we're going to have a list of council here of the proposed roadways that we're going to do. We're going to have that to you hopefully in the next couple of weeks. I'm going to stop there because you gave me, what, 3 minutes? I'm over already. But Mr. Little's going to give you, I heard, we were listening the other day, and I know Mr. Neal had a question about the recycle energy system. So Chris is going to give a brief update as to where we're at on that.
Thank you, Madam Chairman and Committee. The Akron Energy Operation, AES as we call it, we're very proud of the collaboration we've had with them and Akron Children's Hospital and Akron General Cleveland Clinic. We recently signed a 20-year agreement, an operation agreement to provide both hospitals with steam, and that's all their existing buildings. They're going to look at each new building and do an evaluation, but we are adding the condensate from Children's. Now you've seen all the construction down Bowery and then down Exchange back to our plant down to Locust, which is going to save us a tremendous amount of money in just water, because when that steam is condensed back to water, we're taking it back to the plant, but before they dumped it down the drain. So it not only saves our sewer system from treating all that water, but also all that water makeup that we won't have to make up, we'll use it. So Akron Children's, they recently put the K Pavilion on our steam system, and the new Considine 2, which will be done later this year, will be on our steam system. Akron General Cleveland Clinic is building a new ER, and that also will have steam into the emergency room. So we're very proud of that. But with that 20-year agreement, we had to make some changes to our system. And some of you toured the old BF Goodrich plant. The roof's caving in. So we're in the process of building a new high-efficiency energy plant on the old RES Recycle Energy property. We're doing that right now. We should be out of BFG sometime later this summer. So everything will be out of BFG. The electric's been moved and all the operations, so we can shut that building down. None of the workers, whether they're city workers or AES workers, will have to go to that building. Then later next year, we will move all the utilities out of RES, the old Recycle Energy where we used to burn trash. We will be totally out of that building. So with those two things and the high efficiency plant, we will not only have more reliability, but we can attract more customers. This place had a bad rap for many, many years that it wasn't reliable. Well, the hospitals, by hiring an independent engineering firm, looked at our system, looked at our plan, and they would have not went on. They would have built their own steam plant. But they decided to stay on our plant and sign a 20-year agreement. So AES, the Akron Energy people, service, economic development, and finance, we're all working together. When a new customer or a new building comes downtown, we are going to make the best pitch forward to put them on. Because as you know, more people on the system will help all the ratepayers pay less. That's it.
You're available for any questions. We have all the technical expertise.
Any questions from the committee? Councilwoman Amobian.
Well, a couple of things. In order to do all of this with AES, how much money do we need to invest in it to allow it to provide that kind of service?
Well, last year you okayed the COPS 2. That went through. So we're using that loan that we took out. If you want to answer, Steve.
That was a bond. That was a bond issuance that we did. It's a certificate of participation, or COPS. So we did that issue last year.
And how much are we talking about?
It was 11 million, I believe, but the payments on that are being made by the efficiency improvements at the plant. And I think Chris has the year-end report that he can show you where we are making those payments based on the efficiency that we have gained from that program that you all approved.
So these 20-year leases that we just signed, would that be enough revenue to pay this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
But in order to do that, we had to increase the efficiency of the plant.
Sure.
Because the steam is not only for their heat, it's also for their sterilization for the operating rooms, for all their instruments. So if there's no steam, it's not like they got to shut the emergency room down, but they have to have that operation to continually sterilize those instruments to perform that.
And how many employees do we have there?
We don't have any city employees.
Right.
Oh, we don't have any?
No, it's run by AES, Akron Energy Systems.
Okay, okay.
And
You
part of the,
talked Go ahead.
I was going to say, part of the efficiencies that we've gained by closing down the BFG plant, they have been able to reduce their staffing through attrition so that AES doesn't have as many people working at the plant as they did prior to the closing of BFG.
Okay. The main breaks, I know you said we had 110.
Mm-hmm.
Will there ever be a time where, I know when I go to some of these workshops, they have these instruments or whatever they use that can tell you where the weaknesses are or whatever, so you can start projecting on where you need to go and replace or whatever. Will we ever, do we have equipment like that now that would help us?
We do. We do. Replacement of an entire water line is a very, very expensive project.
Okay.
And we have run tests on certain pipes that we feel are critical to the system, and we know, pretty much understand the condition of those, and we've made some repairs based on those studies. But our system is an older system. I mean, a lot of the pipes have been in place for many, many years, and we need to make a comprehensive effort to replace pipes as necessary throughout the system.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Anyone else from the committee? Okay. Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Couple questions in regards to the steam plant. What is our agreement with, is AES? Is that who? Because I think last year when we were surprised that Children's gave it back to us, the question was, how things were going to work. You told us that we have a new operator. Before we gave it to Children's Hospital, the city wasn't running it. We had an operator at that time.
They've been there for quite a while, AES, but Children's never actually took ownership.
Correct. But we had put it on the ballot.
Yes.
Citizens voted,
Yes.
approved, and then it came back, and we were surprised we received it. What is so at the end of the day, we're not supporting it anymore. It's self-supportive. So what's the return on that investment now? What kind of?
Well, right now, after, by, the revenue we take in, and then you take all the fuel costs, you take the labor, you take all the benefits for those workers, and then you take all our debt. I think we're just a little bit over $5,000 we have.
Is what we're paying or what's coming in?
That's what we have left over after we take in and pay everything out.
So, but now you mentioned that they're not our employees, but you mentioned that after we pay labor and everything.
That comes out of the revenue. That's paid. That's in our contract with them.
Okay, so it's not like a set fee. Will council be able to take a look at the agreement that we have with them?
Yes.
Okay, because my question, I think, piggybacking on what Mr. Mobian says is, that's great that we've upgraded it, and now that's a nice asset. What kind of increase can we expect as we add more customers and as debt is paid down? As we look into the future years, we can project that as, because I heard you say you were listening yesterday, one of the things we've asked the administration is, what are the assets that the city has? The goal is hopefully never to sell another asset, because the only reason somebody's going to buy it is because it is an asset and they can make money from it. What we want to learn is how to make money from it at the beginning, like this, with a partnership where it used to cost us money, now it doesn't, and it's $5,000, but you know what? It's $5,000 that we wouldn't have if we didn't still have this asset. So appreciate that, but for our benefit, so we can see what we can project potentially coming in as we add more customers. And when you look at all the development that's projected for downtown, that could be, a great benefit to us in the near future.
Just to be clear, the city is still paying a portion of the debt. So the debt issuance that we did last year is being covered entirely with the operating revenues that AES is taking in, but the earlier issuances that we did, I believe our first one was in 2010, we are still paying that debt. So the system is improving in its profitability, but we are still paying a portion of the debt.
So if we can have those numbers too, because I think 2010 or a little bit after that is when we start having a discussion about potentially selling the steam plant at that time. So that would be helpful. Thank you.
Councilman Swirsky.
Oh, just, yeah, I would like to see those figures too on what the debt is. But talking about the benefits, you identified some of the institutions that they're getting heat at a very low cost. They employ a lot of people. They're downtown. They pay taxes. Their employees pay now more income taxes. Do you have like a whole list of the businesses that are on
Connected?
board?
Yes. Some of them didn't want to sign a contract with us, so their rate's a little bit different than the people that would sign a 20-year agreement with us.
Okay. What about the ones that have signed one? Who are they?
We've got the county, I mean, we've got the big users, we've got the hospitals, we've got the county, we've got us, we're a customer.
Canal Place.
Canal Place is one of our larger customers, and then you've got all the little customers in the central business district.
Like peanut shops on there.
Yeah, so we can give you that list.
Yeah.
You can see,
Yeah, no,
you can.
I'm just sort of
Sure.
recognizing that there was some costs that we seem to be working off, heading in the right direction, and reminding ourselves of what the benefits are all these businesses. Will it be able to fit in with small business districts in any way? Is there technology that it could, or is that
Probably not.
proximity?
Probably not.
Proximity?
No, because if you look, Fussy Cleaners up on Market used to be on, and when these guys come in, the line was so long and in such poor condition, it was costing us money to give them steam, even when they paid us. You know what I mean? If you start looking at how long.
That's what I'm asking.
So we have to have a good business plan of how we're going to expand this system.
But
Some things doesn't make sense.
But the good news is we're in a position to expand the system. We were in a bad place a few years back, but now the system is operating efficiently. It's in good condition as verified by the hospitals.
Yeah, it's in the black. It's no longer in the red.
And we can actually go out and sell the system to potential developers or existing buildings. And that's what we plan to do.
Use it to attract.
That's what
more
we plan to do.
Downtown, more big institutions, probably help with the Interbelt area some way, part that isn't green.
Possibly.
There's potential.
Yeah. What is the proximity that it makes sense to? I'm just curious.
Well, I mean, we're Canal Place, down at Gojo, and then we're all the way north. Basically, we're looking right now at possibly John S. Knight. Their system is at the age where it needs upgraded, and it might make sense to put them on the system. But there again, how much would it take to change over their system? How much infrastructure change? It's not just like running the steam in the building.
Right.
When they have conventional
It's not always
HVAC,
doable.
everything's on the roof. Sometimes, you can't tear the whole building up it wouldn't pay for itself back. So that's the things that we're doing the analysis on.
Yeah. Boy, it sounds like it has a lot of potential, though.
Thank you, Mr. Swirsky. Councilwoman Sims, and then I'll go over to you, Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 9-14, that's the 1/4% income tax. There's $250,000 for capital outlay, but the inter-fund service charge is $4 million. Why is that?
Okay, I'll let Service speak to the capital outlay. That's a piece of equipment. The $4,150,000 will be transferred over to our resurfacing fund, so that's all for resurfacing. So that's the portion of issue 4 for roads that will be used for resurfacing.
So why didn't it appear differently in the budget instead of as an inter-fund service charge?
Because we're going to be because we have a resurfacing fund that will transfer those dollars to.
So
we're going to pay for the resurfacing program in the same place we always have. We'll just have this additional $4,150,000 contributing towards it, and that's going to pay for the extra miles of roads that we do.
Okay. So this is in addition to the other monies we already had earmarked for roads?
Correct.
Okay. So I asked this question yesterday. They told me wait for service, get service. So on some of the new signage around the city, Portage Path, there's cameras. and there's big, really big signs. Whose cameras are those, and who decided on the big, really big signs?
I'm sorry, you were talking, it's on Exchange Street, you say, at Portage?
It would be on Exchange 1. There's
So it's part of the Cedar Exchange project, there's been new signage put up, or?
So no, it's actually at Portage Path and at West Exchange Street.
Are you looking for?
And there's also, what's that? I know it's in your.
What?
It's right at Portage Path and West Exchange, and they're also right at Maple and almost Copley Road. They're big signs that say Portage Path, and they're pointing, but they're kind of a little wonky. I don't even know if they're going in the right direction.
They're up high, they're street.
And they're about that
street
big.
sign. They're a little bit larger, and it's at an intersection that there's multiple forks there.
Okay.
And then
So
there's,
they're street signs. They give the names of the street, so they're up high.
and then there's new, look like cameras up there. So I was wondering whose cameras are safety, I didn't know whose camera those were, and why the big signs that don't look like they quite point to the street that you're supposed to be going down. Just,
Let me go
they
out.
look like somebody's back there jumping at the bit.
Jim might have some information, but let me go out and look at those signs. The cameras, I'm pretty sure, are ours for traffic, for traffic control. We can control the lights in those
So they're
situations.
specifically for,
I believe they're for traffic control. Behind you.
I think it's at Hyde. Is that Hyde right there at, is that
That
Hyde?
is it. I think that is it.
Now you got an engineer to answer it, so.
Yeah, we're in trouble. We are in big trouble.
The signs are, for the street signs, they are larger now than they were in the past, based on the traffic codes that were passed in Ohio Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. That's why the signs are larger now than what you're typically used to seeing. The cameras are part of the intersection for the signal timing to indicate when cars are in the intersection to change the cycle of the lights.
So those cameras,
Yeah, they're not for safety, they're not, and we're not using them for anything other than that. They're vehicle detection cameras, so that we can control the signals when they turn red, when they turn green, and the flow of traffic through those intersections.
okay, cool. So all of the new signs in the city, street signs, they will look like that?
These standards have changed, and yes, the signs will be bigger.
Oh.
Sorry.
Is that really because of an aging society? I mean, what is
You'll
that?
be happier as you get older.
Huh?
You'll be happier as you get older.
I'll appreciate it later.
Yeah.
They just seem really, and I'm not sure, maybe you'll take a look at it, because I'm not sure if I knew that was Hyde Street or was it Portage Path, by the way the signs are in. Thank you. Oh.
Please go right ahead. And then
So-
Councilman Neal.
I know we talked a little bit about, I know we're going to keep things separate with the 0.25% income tax. Do we currently, or have we begun looking at what streets we're prioritizing? And if you have that list, how soon will we see that list?
Yes, we have been working on that list diligently for the past month or so, and we will have that hopefully to you in the next couple of weeks for your review.
Okay, I'll answer. So I don't know how much money was in the fund for people who may have a complaint about some of the potholes. Is there any increase in your budget to deal with that?
I don't believe so. Do you? Steve, you?
Right.
So I think we have the typical, maintenance costs included in our highway maintenance that we typically do.
So I'm just curious because I really don't know the answer. So there's not just a pool of money to deal with that. So when someone makes a complaint to the city, is there not a pool you're looking at? And if No,
Well, there always is.
We
I mean,
have
that's part of the task of the Highway Maintenance Division is to, to do the pothole patching every winter, and that's included in their budget.
no, I'm not talking about filling the pothole. I'm talking about addressing complaints as a result of the pothole.
Yes, we have funds available to address those complaints, and I say we filled every pothole last year. Whether it stayed in there or not is the question, but we addressed every issue that came to us last year, and we'll do the same this year.
Okay. So I know you're saying if someone calls you and say, hey, there's a pothole here, we need you to come fix it. That's what you're talking about?
Yes.
So you address that. So my question is, I would imagine that we have additional complaints from residents about potholes that resulted in possibly some injury to their automobile. And that fund, is that a separate fund or is that just part of maintenance?
Those are claims that are submitted to the law department.
So that's what I was wondering. So does the law department have a separate fund?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Neal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick before I get to my question, just because she mentioned the roads and whatnot, when we do our repaving, I know we're going to take a look at the level of the asphalt on the street as it is compared to, because some, the sewer inlets are real high.
Yes.
And in this, over the winter with all the snow we had, many of the sewer cap inlets were destroyed and moved away.
Right, in the budget, we have what they call riser rings.
Okay.
So on top of those manholes, it could be a 1-inch to a 3-inch ring.
Okay.
A lot of times the plows will hit those, and then, you can't leave them sticking up. So we will remove those rings, and the manhole may be sitting down now 1 inch.
Okay.
But in the resurfacing program and the regular budget, we have money for riser rings.
Okay.
So if those are turned into 311, either highway can replace them, or if it's in our resurfaced street, they will replace it. It's in their contract to change those.
One more on the steam plant, and then I wanted to ask something about Mud Run. Seeing that we have a projection for that development going out towards the old Innerbelt area, I think kind of alluding to Mr. Swirsky's point, I'm sure, or at least I'm hoping that that's part of our plan as an incentive to make sure that anything that's in that area utilizes the steam plant, so that we build it so that it can, whatever that capacity is, the steam plant's capacity would be that as well, so we can maximize our opportunity. Just wanted to ask that.
Any new development, we are asking them to let us do an evaluation to do a business case on what is the best for the operation. Because every building, the way it's built, may not be best for steam.
Okay. And then my question for Mud Run, I thought that the city had a private contractor for Mud Run. But I see where for 2017, we didn't have anything budgeted, but our actual expenditures were $287,000.
Correct. So what we did is at the beginning of 17, we budgeted the entire amount because the first T agreement wasn't fully in place at the beginning of 2017. We didn't start until, I don't know, I think it was in April sometime. And that's why you see the expenses going up slightly, because we didn't have a full year really in 2017 with things being separate between Good Park and Mud Run. Okay. So we do the first T operates. Now we do have one employee, one city employee. The greenskeeper at Mud Run is still a city employee. Okay. All of the other employees are employees of the first T, and therefore the bulk of the costs are paid under the current expenditures. So we have a contract with First T where we reimburse them for their expenses, all of their labor plus any of the materials and things like that that they buy.
Okay. Well, I'm going to ask for this one like we have for the other ones. When we contract with someone, I'd like if council can see the benefit of that, because I mean this right here looks like we're covering all the expenses just like if it was ours, and so I don't see the benefit. I don't know what revenue is coming in from First T, but I'd like to see that, to see if this is to the benefit of us as a city, because, you know, all I see is the expenditures for something that.
Correct. I mean, we're looking at all that. I would say last year was similar in terms of the operating performance of both golf courses to what we had in the previous year.
Well, I mean, if we can have this, because I know our chairman, Mr. Freeman, has asked that, you know, we have in the past emailed questions. Some of these questions are questions that have come up in the past, and I just think, it's just my belief that one of the reasons, I think council, we can provide do our job better as far as helping to look at the budget and suggest maybe some alternatives if we had all the information. Because this is one of the concerns, like if we have an asset, and the golf course is an asset, how can we maximize it? This right here looks like we're losing with this agreement that we have. You follow what I'm saying? So more information would be helpful.
All right, we will provide that.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, I think we are done. Thank you so much.
No. I have one more.
Councilman Neal. You
And
almost-
it's Miss, I love you, Mr. Moore.
I love you too.
But you know,
But now we got that out of the way, would they? You guys? Yeah, that might be better for a private meeting.
No, but out of all seriousness, I mean, you have really helped me, and I've expressed that, and so I'm not, you helped me with one of the most successful programs I have, the one with the redoing the homes, with the church with Mount Olive. I wish, as a city, we could have done more of that. I wish I could do more in my ward. But there is one thing that I've, with us looking at cutting costs, and if you heard, you know, we're looking at taking money from our neighborhood, my neighborhood, our Akron grant. I'm still baffled, and I know you only can do what instructed to do, but I'm still baffled by why we have the contract paying $120,000, $140,000 a year to paint the fire hydrants. You know, in talking to, just a second, I have my notes here. In talking to the folks from Stowe, and I think it's Mr. Warren, and then talking to Mr. Williams with the, until I get their names right, let me get the thing. Basically, that program was successful for them. And it only cost them somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe no more than $5,000. Now, of course, they have a lot fewer fire hydrants. With us having people that are, you know, we heard that we have a 57% poverty rate. So what may seem like a small sum to us, and you guys aren't involved in the lawn care contracts, but you could talk to well, you used to be, so Mr. Valley, I mean, those small contractors want those contracts, and we're only paying $25 a yard. So nobody's going to get rich off of that, but for them, that is an important contract to get. We could economically empower some of our residents and significantly save somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 a year. And this is coming from a community that's doing that. So I don't know what we need to do to change this, but if as a council, the reason why everybody comes before us to share their budget is because we approve them. And we have the ability to make adjustments. If we know that we could save $100,000 to $120,000 a year, I don't know why we don't. I mean, and so, you know, again, it may be out of your hands, but the fact remains that a city, a stone's throw away from us, who we just did a 911 service call agreement with, Stowe, painted all their fire hydrants for less than $5,000 a year. Didn't cost them any. All they had to do was buy the paint and the brushes. No labor costs on their behalf, and they worked with the disability group and just used TANF dollars. And as significant as, I think we're about 3, 4, that started in 2013, so we're almost 5 years into that now?
3.
3 years into that?
The contract actually ends this year.
We're about $300,000 into that agreement. If we continue it, that's another $700,000. Now, we sit here and we quibble over $10,000 here, but here we're talking about almost $750,000 that we could still save. I'll leave that there. The information has been brought before us. It's factual. We can save this money. We can empower our residents. I just want to know why we don't do it.
Okay, Councilman Swirsky?
Oh, wait, did you guys want to respond to that?
Well, I would just say service, you know, we're kind of in the business of deciding what I don't want to call them statistics. What am I trying to say here? The specs. We draw up the specs, we bid it, we take the lowest bidder. By law, we take the lowest bidder. I think the program you're talking about might be better suited in another, I don't know whether it's neighborhoods or planning, because it doesn't really fit in our wheelhouse, I guess, is what I would say first about it.
I mean, a fire hydrant is a fire hydrant is a fire hydrant is a fire hydrant.
True.
And I pulled up, I guess, I pulled up my notes. So with Summit County DD, it was Drew Williams, and they're looking for more programs. It was very successful for them. And I spoke with Nick Warren he's the social service director. They loved it because all they had to do was throw a pizza party at the end of the year. And as council, you know, we're sitting here talking about wanting to save money. Here's a potential $750,000 savings right here for painting fire hydrants.
I called them too, and we do use those students in other programs.
I understand.
But our specs, the way we wrote these specs, it takes 3 trips for the contractor to go there. Okay, and you're right. We spent $300,000 in the last 3 years. Okay, they painted 4,500 fire hydrants. We have 12,500 fire hydrants. He told me they painted 200 in Stowe. So 200 a year would take us about 60 years to paint all our fire hydrants.
Well,
he said he started out with 8 or 9 students and 3 or 4 coaches, and some of the students, they quit coming. So he ended up with like 2 crews. He kept them in neighborhoods. He would not put them on Route 91 or Graham Road. They'd have backup. They'd have to have a truck behind them. And I wouldn't put kids on the street either. I don't even like our people on the street, the way people drive. So we did look at that. But we want 10 years out of this painting. And to get them all done, it's going to take another contract. And we're getting ready to bid it. And we're going to put it out to bid, like he said, at our spec, with that high resistant paint so the salt doesn't eat it up. Not something out of a gallon. This paint that they're using is over $200 a gallon. So we're very happy with the product we're getting.
Well, we know specs can be written however we want them to write. I can tell you this. Out of all my years as a council person, I have not had only call I had about a fire hydrant if it's been knocked over. I haven't had one call about an ugly fire hydrant. And with what we're doing with artists and everything else, there's a way for us to save money. I don't think, you know, we're not in the position to spend that kind of money because we didn't do it in the past.
Can we call for a point of information? This has nothing to do with our budget right now.
It has everything to do with it, Mr. Hope.
That's another item that is outside of what we're looking at right here, and you keep bringing it up at every opportunity that you can, even outside of a public service.
Okay, Mr. Hope, excuse me.
And it's, well, you know, how many times do you have to be told, no, we're not going to do that, it's not going to be done that way. We're a city that cannot go in that direction, and you keep coming back to it. And we're
I had the floor.
I asked for a point of information. Madam Chair, could I have a point
what
of
information do you want? What more you need?
He's asking for a point of information, which means until we get the information, we leave this right now and get the information.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. Again, the question is, what information do you need? It has all documentation has been provided to council several times.
Councilman Hoke has asked for a point of information to get the information that is held over here.
What information do you need?
I'm not requesting it. Councilman
Mr. Hoke, what information do you need?
Excuse me, Mr. Neal. I will ask Mr. Hoke what information.
Mr. Hoke addressed me, Madam Chair.
But I'm still running the meeting.
Correct.
Councilman Neal. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I do understand that, but you
Please
allow
go
Mr.
ahead.
Hoke
Tell
to
him
address
what
me
information
personally.
The point of information is that this is a subject that is down the list on what we're looking at on this particular budget. And it's something that's not going to happen on this budget as of today. And that's why we're here. We're here to discuss this budget, these pages, and not talk about specifics as what, we're not talking about, specific, projects that need to be done or looked at or anything else. Mr. Freeman asked us at the beginning of all of these hearings that we specifically look and talk about this budget. And talking about specifics with fire hydrants and how they're getting painted and who's going to paint them, that has nothing to do with the budget that's on here right now. And that's for another subject. No, don't interrupt me, Mrs. Amobian.
You asked for a point of information.
No, I asked for a point of information, but I didn't.
So you need to request the information you want.
Yes.
But it's not from you, that's from Madam Chair, it's not from you.
But
Thank
you
you.
haven't.
So what is the information you would like?
The information I would like is that I would like to talk about the budget in particular and the numbers on the budget and go forward with this particular budget. And if you want to talk about specifics, then call a special meeting and then you can talk about that particular item. But this has nothing to do with this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Amobian.
Just a point of clarification. And I just have one quick question. You talk about the airport in here, and if you can provide some information, I know that the Blue Ribbon Task Force gave some recommendations on economic development opportunities out there. Just give us some idea where we are with that in terms of developing that area.
Certainly.
But going back to the other issue, and I think what Mr. Neal is doing is, and maybe he can ask offline some of the questions, but when you ask for a point of information, you request the information you need to make a decision. So, but if you could do that for me, please, I appreciate it.
Certainly.
Thank you.
And Madam Chair?
Councilman Neal.
Yes. And for clarification too, a budget outlines the administration's and council's goals and objectives. These numbers reflect people, they reflect programs, they reflect projects. So when we talk about something like fire hydrants or like the steam plant, these numbers have to reflect our goals and objectives. We have talked about saving money. It has been documented and shared how we can save money. So this is very pertinent to the conversation. This is the department that handles that, and they're before us right now.
Councilman Neal, we are on a 3-year contract. We still, I believe, have 1 more year of that 3-year contract.
We're going to bid that this year.
We're bidding it out this year.
So this is the time to have that conversation.
Okay, thank you, and it's so noted. Councilman Swirsky, you had your hand up at one time.
I was just going to say I love Chris Lovell.
I do too.
I didn't want him left out.
I'm a lover.
Oh, my. Are there any other? Councilwoman Sims.
Thank you, Madam Chair. On page 9-39, on current expenditures, can you tell me, did something significant happen in 2017 that reduced our expenditures and then they're back up to $850,000?
This is the Water Capital Fund, so we typically budgeted $300,000 more this year than last year. It's just a matter of which projects they make it through. So we didn't we spent slightly less than what we budgeted last year, but we're right about that level that we typically budget, 3.2 to 3.4 million.
Well, is that page 39?
939, yes.
You said you spent slightly less?
Looks like we spent 2,805,000.
Okay, I'm looking at the line item 70, current expenditures.
Okay, I'm just looking at, okay. So, the capital budget is a mix of capital charges plus engineering charges, so probably the engineering charges were slightly less last year than they typically are.
So when you say slightly less, are we saving $750,000 less?
Yes.
That's slightly, so, was there any, okay.
I can look and see.
Yeah, I mean, if you said 350,000, it's 700,000, and then we're back up to 850,000. I was just wondering, was there something significant that happened there? It looked like it should have been.
And keep in mind, your capital expenditures are going to vary a little bit more year to year than your operating ones will. So.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it varied from 2017 to 2000.
But in total, it really didn't.
I guess for me, I don't look at capital outlay the same way as I do as expenditures.
All right. Yeah, so, our engineering contractual in 2017 was $70,000, and it was almost $800 in the year before. Let me sort it by organization.
What page are we on?
Page 9-39, on our would be 120.
Yeah, so in the prior year, we had a couple larger projects. We had the AWP Miscellaneous Plant Improvement Project, where we spent $269,000. And let's see, what was this one? The Britton Road Reservoir Improvements, we spent $176,000. And the North Summit Supply Main, we spent $303,000. Either 303 or 383. I'm having a hard time reading. And then last year, and some of these projects were probably still going on. Our largest expense was for the North Summit Supply Main, which was about $50,000. And the other ones were small, under $10,000. So it's just a matter of which projects were going on at the time.
So we're anticipating similar project at the level of 2017? Is that why?
It's 2016.
2016?
Yes.
The next one, 940, similar. Are we expecting something different there?
We are doing a little bit more equipment this year. And let's see, in the
So on the vehicle replacements, maybe you can answer this, Mr. Moore. Are some of the vehicles for some of your departments as it relates to the road, are those covered under the 0.25%?
These are water, I think you're looking at the water fund? This is the
These
water-
ones,
these are
these
water-
ones here are not, these are in the CIP fund.
These are capital improvement, public services.
This would be part of our, we get a
Non-operating.
certain amount of capital funds each year to replace equipment, and that is what these purchases are. We are paving roads with our share of the 0.25%, if that's what you're asking.
So these are just additional purchases, capital,
We update our fleet
Yes.
every year.
is this income tax?
Yes.
So that's why we have it in the increase. So I'm not weird, it's just weird the way you guys did it. Okay. Okay, so. Okay, so the last one is, just out of curiosity, what is the J.S. Knight estate?
That is a small fund that we have. That's on, which page is that on?
It is 9-41.
I'm sorry, 9-41.
41.
41.
So it says the funds handle monetary settlements.
Right, so we have a balance in there. We always appropriate funds for it. What is that? It's 22720. Yeah, so we have about $26,000 in there. We really haven't spent here in a while. The last time we spent was in 2013.
So just curious, what is it? I mean, I see some,
I imagine this was probably formerly a trust and agency fund, which means that someone donated money to the city
like the Kenmore.
for, exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Milkovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, gentlemen. Just a question on the vehicle replacement. Now, we purchase used vehicles from time to time, correct?
Correct.
Trucks. Seeing that we have in-house mechanics, do we let our mechanics go over these vehicles prior to purchase? Or do we get some kind of warranty on it?
Absolutely, we do.
Okay,
I
great.
confirmed that with Mr. Hall, and we do.
Great. Thank you.
Just the last part, on 9, Madam Chair.
Please go right ahead,
On
Councilman.
942, so on the TIFs, so the actual expenditure is 195,250. Next year, we're looking at 1.1. So is there something significant happening there?
That is some of the contractual payments that we have to give back to when projects were developed. In certain instances, monies were promised back to the developers as part of the, the agreement to do the project. So those are payments back to developers as part of the TIF project.
Okay, try me
And
again.
it varies somewhat year to year. I mean,
So in the previous years, so we had 255 budgeted and 48. It just seems like there's
yeah,
something.
and that's kind of a placeholder, if you will. So we've appropriated funds because we don't know exactly how much TIF is going to come in. Right, yeah.
Say. Yeah, no, that ain't make no sense to me. thought y'all was gonna try again. So, it's just a significant jump.
Some of the development agreements, until they're finalized, we can't pay it out. So if they come to fruition, they finalize, we'll have to pay it out. If not, it will be unspent budget.
So can the agreements be over multiple years, like maybe from 2016, there's still an outstanding one?
The TIF agreements take, I think, a couple of years to get approval from the state. So the
There could
TIFs
be
lag.
multiple, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? Seeing none, I want to thank both of you. You obviously, and all of you, not just both of you, but those two seem to be loved the most. So, but I want to thank you all for your time. And
Thank
for your
you.
You're quite welcome.
I love Jim Paul,
Thank
too.
you.
Okay. So,
But
seeing
you
that,
guys
is there a
did-
motion?
You guys did clap for Valley, you know, that's
Oh,
not...
I'm sorry.
I love Jim
So
Paul,
actually, I
too.
have one more question.
He doesn't hear.
On page 9-44, are there no longer any employees there? Because I didn't think budgeted for them in 2018. So that's the streets DW non-operating. You used to have 1.75 employees in there?
I can't interrupt her.
No.
The page number is 9-44.
Yeah, those are employees of the Highway Maintenance Division that we formerly used to charge a portion of their salaries off to the Streets Fund because they work on the resurfacing program, but they're charged to highway maintenance.
So we just charge them somewhere else?
Right, their count is showing in here, but they're highway maintenance employees, and their salaries are there.
So last year, we had 1.75 employees. This year, we don't.
This year, they're there, their salaries aren't budgeted here, they're budgeted under the highway. I mean, the rest of, this is pieces of people. And their salaries are budgeted under highway.
Okay. Is that okay?
Just maybe in the future, maybe just like something that we can do to clean some of this up just a little bit, because I don't want to have a lot of questions. I just want it to be, I can look at this and it makes sense. The last couple of things we talked about didn't, and so I would just ask that we think, like I wouldn't know why you would have even an employee listed there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have, could
Is there a
make a motion
for-
to adjourn?
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, all in favor? Aye. This meeting is adjourned.